Welcome to Wrestling Still Cool podcast. My name's KM, and there's Mark.
Yo.
All right. So in this one, we're going to do a little throwback to the 1990 Great American Bash from Baltimore. Did you, speaking of that pay-per-view, did you catch who was the commentating with Jim Ross?
Yeah, Jim Ross was with, I just added my notes. So Jim Ross was, who was he with? I didn't catch it.
It was like Bob or Bobby. I didn't know the guy's name. I missed it once, and they never said it again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Bobby, I did not catch that, honestly. I was going to go back. I forgot to go back on and check that out. That's who, yeah. I wasn't sure about that one, honestly.
Now, what was your opinion of that commentator with them?
It was all right. Jim Ross was top level as usual. I mean, I don't know how long. I don't know that dude ever has had a flaw, really. But it was good for what it was, and
right.
I think the Ventura commentary is a little more better. But
they got along a lot better. So I had to quickly look this up. That was Bob Caudle, and I don't know that name anywhere.
Bob Caudle. I don't think I ever heard of.
I haven't heard of him. He was the only person I didn't recognize. Now,
you got any information on him?
So it's Wikipedia says he was an American professional wrestler, most notable for his time with the National Wrestling Alliance. He started working with Jim Crockett Promotions in the late 1950s. With promoter Jim Crockett Sr. through the 1970s and 80s. Caudle was the official voice of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling and is known for his trademark greeting, "Hello, wrestling fans." And his trademark sign-off line, "That'll do it for this week. We'll see you next time, and until then, so long for now."
So for any old school wrestling fans, I apologize for not knowing that.
Same. I did not know that guy, and I kept on listening for them to say the name again, which Jim Ross did say Bob or Bobby, but it's okay. I need another name because I don't recognize this person. And he's one of the only people I ever noticed that called Jim Ross just Jim. Typically, you usually hear JR or Jim Ross, but this one,
more or less
kept saying Jim.
The JR name came a little bit later on. I think it's was called Jim.
Right, but during the one with Jesse Ventura, they kept calling each other. Jesse kept calling him Jim Ross.
Yeah. Well, that's fine too.
So, and one of the things I noticed with this pay-per-view, because it mentioned the build to it for the main event between Sting and Ric Flair. This was in the era where Sting was brought into the Four Horsemen, and it subsequently kicked off because Ric Flair likes to do Ric Flair things to Sting, apparently.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember, yeah, absolutely. It was a good build-up for that, and I liked to build it through the entire night, honestly, on it. And it was Sting's first big shot. He was still fairly, short career inside that company, so fairly inside wrestling in general. I mean, his biggest run till that point was as a Blade Runners with Ultimate Warrior. And,
right.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was Blade, I think that was the Warrior's name.
Yeah. In the Blade Runners, it was man, I don't recall now.
Oh, I know their name. I know their name, but it's that was his biggest accomplishment till then. So it was
And talk about two people that went very, very different directions, Warrior and Sting.
Yeah, they had different directions, different ultimatums.
Right. And
but it worked out for the best of them.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
But but Sting, he had a great match with Ric Flair. I mean, a lot of good matches in general. That was a big proving point for him.
And to jump back, the Ultimate Warrior was Blade Runner Rock.
Yeah, that's what it was.
As if wrestling didn't have enough rocks. Actually, speaking of that, the first match was Nature Boy Buddy Landel versus Flying Brian Pillman. How many Nature Boys were there?
Off the top of my head, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's 4, but I could be mistaken. There might have been a little more than that. But that was you had Buddy Rogers, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Buddy Rogers.
Rogers.
That's when they mention Nature Boy Buddy. I go, oh, Buddy. Then they say Landell. I'm like, there was a Nature Boy Buddy Landell.
I think part of that Buddy Rogers, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the influence Ric Flair also got from some of the influence of that too. But I think there's 4 total, if I'm not mistain. But
Buddy Rogers gave him the name.
Yeah. So that's the I guess that's what I mean by the influence. But there might have been 3, but for y'all that know that answer, you can comment. I think if there is different answers than that.
One of the things I noticed too during the match, Buddy Landell did the normal Nature Boy Ric Flair thing of getting down on his knees and begging off Brian Pillman, because Brian Pillman came right out the gate fast and going for it.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, Buddy's doing that thing to try and get sympathy after Pillman got the jump. That was one of the things that stuck out to me. So I'm kind of curious who came first, whether it be Ric Flair or Buddy Landell. I have a feeling it might be Buddy Landell, but no one can deny Ric Flair at this point is the Nature Boy.
I think Flair came first, honestly. I think Landell made his debut just like a couple of years after Flair.
Okay.
I think it was.
But either way, Ric Flair, took that and ran with it.
Yeah. And there won't be another Nature Boy as far as like in wrestling. I don't see the reason for that. You can't really overcome with Ric Flair.
No, if anything, it's going to be passed on to Charlotte Flair at this point.
Nature Girl.
Yeah, well, obviously. So Brian Pillman won with a flying crossbody and pinned. And I think based on how they were presenting this match, I think this was one of Brian Pillman's first matches.
Yeah, he was a young buck there. That's one of his. He came in, I think, started wrestling in '88, I think, something like that. Yeah, something like that.
And the only reason I think that is he was still wearing the Bengals colors on his ring gear, so paying homage to where he played football. Yeah. And so they go to Gordon Solie. So Gordon Solie is one of the ones that's like an interviewer and doing stuff in the crowd. One of the things I picked up on in doing this, it seems it kind of leads into a match that's not the next match, but the match after that is when Gordon Solie would typically interview people. Mm-hmm. The only thing it didn't apply to is Ric Flair. Ric Flair interviewed in an empty stadium, so you could kind of tell that they pre-taped it.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
And the next match was the Iron Sheik versus Captain Mike Rotunda. And this is another person. I think this is one of his first matches as well because of how they were presenting him on the night. They were paying homage. Sure.
A question for what did you rate the first match?
Oh, my bad. So Buddy Landell versus Brian Pillman. It wasn't quite a squash. It was definitely to used to enhance Brian Pillman, kind of get people behind him. So I kind of gave it a 6 out of 10 based on that.
I gave it a 5.8, honestly. Pillman won the flying crossbody. So it was a good match, honestly.
It was a good match, but it wasn't one of those where they're going back and forth. You could tell it was made to make Brian Pillman look good.
Oh, yeah, I think it was a good kickoff of the show. Yeah.
Right. It was a good thing to kind of get things going.
Yeah.
So the Rotunda versus Iron Sheik, they kept mentioning what Rotunda was doing in college, so you could kind of tell this is an introduction match, if you will.
Yeah, this is the beginning of his WCW, run.
Yeah, and in this one, there's a little bit of a back and forth, not too crazy, very similar, very, very similar to the Brian Pillman Buddy Landell match. Rotunda wins with a backslide on the Iron Sheik, which it was probably one of the slowest backslides I've ever seen.
Yeah.
For the win. This one, similar rating. I gave it a 5 out of 10. It's mainly because of Iron Sheik. That slow backslide kind of took it away.
Yeah.
Took me out of it a bit.
Yeah, no, I understand. It was a little slow. Yeah, absolutely. For me, I gave it 3 point. It wasn't as entertained, but it was still, good for what it was, and it was still there.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool to always see go back in time and see the guys that have been around for a while go back to their first beginnings. So it was cool. But I gave 3.8. It was okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of that, so after there's a promo of Gordon Solie and Harley Race, which I'm gonna be frank, this is probably the second or third thing I've seen with Harley Race, and thus far I haven't really been too impressed with Harley Race.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's one of those, he just doesn't connect with me. There's been people I've been impressed with. Like, I was impressed with Brian Pillman. I never seen his stuff prior to doing these retro reviews, and but when it comes to Harley Race, I'm not getting into it. But immediately after that, this is kind of playing into where they came from. Dirty Dutch Mantel versus Doug Furnas. I didn't know Dutch Mantel was an actual wrestler. I thought he was always a manager, and I knew he found Steve Austin. So seeing him in the ring as this hairy version of Yosemite Sam, that was new to
me. He was a hairy man, and JR made it. He talked about that.
yeah. I looked at this. I'm like, that's not George the Animal Steel, and there's a Dutch Mantel. I go, Dutch Mantel is a wrestler?
Yeah. A lot of those guys were back in at one point. Yeah, but that was he looked a little different with that body hair and that longer hair than we've seen him years later.
Different.
I honestly, a part of me kind of forgot about that. I mean, not him wrestling, him being in WWE that time, that era. But I saw him like, wait a minute. before he said his name, like, that's Dutch.
Yeah, and I'm not one to judge because I'm a hairy person by far, but it was one of those where you don't really see hairy people in wrestling, so it stuck out like a sore thumb.
Man, that was funny.
Yeah, and Doug Furnas again kind of looked like it was one of his more newer matches, like he was like a new talent. They kept mentioning him being the world's strongest man.
Kind of green.
Yeah, and in Dutch, you could tell Dutch kind of like the Iron Sheik before him and Buddy Landel before him was here to just make the new person look good.
Yeah.
Furnas goes for a leapfrog, which was very, very weird. And then there was a belly-to-belly pin for the win. And Furnas came up on top, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So, what did you rate this match?
3.
I actually had to put it in the same place. I actually did 4, but I had to put it in the same place.
Yeah.
Furnas just was not connecting. You could tell Mantel was really trying to get a match out of him.
Yeah. I agree.
And it's kind of weird. I was more distracted by the body hair than anything else.
I don't blame you. SCSU more hairy than that. Oh, almost as hairy as Albert.
Yeah.
It's a different way.
And the whole time I'm like, why does this bother me? And it's just like, maybe it's just because it's so different. And you think, with people like that, and I get it. I wouldn't want to shave. I'm really bad about shaving my face. I get it, but you would think that if you were wearing that getup, you would want to wear pants or something like that to kind of cover some of it up.
I guess it's part of what I thought his look was going to be recognized. Like you couldn't keep your eyes off.
Right.
That brings out that look, I guess.
Someone needs to bring that back. Just
for laugh, at least something different. It's like, damn.
Yeah.
I don't know who would bring that back, honestly.
The best would be is if they bring someone in to do that and call him Razor, as playing off the fact he doesn't use a razor.
Oh Lord, I know there's a lot of jokes with Razor Ramon on that one.
Well, Razor, yeah, Scott Hall. I found him as Scott Hall, so I still think of him as Scott Hall.
Oh, I know.
Just like, oh man, there's someone later in the match. I kept referring to him as the other name, not the one he used at this era. Next, Gordon Solie has Jim Cornette, which Jim Cornette, I'm not going to rag on him. You could definitely tell he could speak a mile a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And he is definitely good at promos.
That's the way it's been